He was just trying to mind his own business. Quiet, polite, focused. He didn't ask for attention. He only wanted to learn. But that wasn't enough for Professor Whitmore. The man had been teaching at Westbridge University for over 30 years and had a reputation for being brilliant, ruthless, and, for anyone who didn't fit his mold, almost impossible to please. And today, he had found a new target, a transfer student, freshly enrolled and sitting silently in the third row. His name was Deshaun Carter. Whitmore had barely introduced the class before his eyes locked onto Deshaun. "You!" he barked, voice echoing sharply in the hall. "What's your name?" Deshaun looked up, startled but calm. "Deshaun Carter." "You're new here, aren't you?" "Yes, sir." Whitmore's lips curved in a smirk that wasn't quite a smile. "Perfect. Let's see what you know." He spun back toward the whiteboard and with theatrical precision wrote out an advanced integral equation, far beyond the level of a first-day lecture. He stepped aside and motioned, "Come solve it." A few chuckles stirred across the room. One student leaned over to whisper, "This professor's wild, bro. First day and he's already doing this?" Deshaun stood slowly, his expression unreadable. As he walked toward the board, the classroom felt more like a stage. Phones subtly rose. The energy had shifted. Professor Whitmore folded his arms. "Don't worry. If you fail, we'll all learn something today." What nobody knew yet, not the professor, not the smirking students, not even the camera rolling quietly in the back row, was that Deshaun had been solving problems like this since middle school. Not because he wanted to prove anything to anyone, but because he loved how numbers never lied. Because when life got too noisy, too unfair, too loud, math gave him peace. But Deshaun didn't rush. He stood at the board, scanning the equation, and for a moment, it looked like he was stuck. A few murmurs slipped out. Whitmore's smirk widened, and then Deshaun picked up the marker. He didn't hesitate. His hand moved fluidly, breaking down the problem into parts most students hadn't even seen before. He substituted variables, isolated patterns, and within minutes, the once complex equation had been reduced to a clean, elegant solution. He stepped back, placed the marker down, and quietly said, "Done." The classroom went dead silent. Whitmore walked up to the board, eyes narrowing. He read every line, then read it again. And for a moment, just a flicker of it, there was confusion in his eyes, then disbelief, then something else. Pride? No, that wasn't it. It was challenge. "Where did you learn to do that?" he asked, voice lower now. Deshaun simply replied, "Just practice." Whitmore didn't say anything. He turned and dismissed the class without acknowledging the solution again. Just like that, he walked out. But that day was only the beginning. By the end of the week, Deshaun had already caused a quiet buzz around campus. Students were whispering about the kid who embarrassed Whitmore. A few even started showing up to lectures early, hoping to see more. But Deshaun kept to himself, always on time, always prepared, never flaunting what he knew. And yet, it didn't take long before the pressure started to rise. On Thursday, during a lecture on thermodynamic entropy, Professor Whitmore suddenly turned the discussion toward Deshaun again. "Carter, what's the second law of thermodynamics in your own words?" Deshaun answered calmly and accurately, but Whitmore kept pushing. "Now derive it." Deshaun started writing, breaking the law into equations, integrating entropy changes, applying the correct sign conventions. It was meticulous. Correct. But as Deshaun continued, Whitmore interrupted. "Number not like that. That's a textbook derivation. I want the Clausius inequality proof. Deshawn paused, marker in hand. That's not a first-year concept, he replied, voice steady. Whitmore leaned forward. Do you want to be here, Carter? Or just look smart? The room fell silent again. Some students shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Others leaned forward, almost enjoying the drama. Deshawn looked at Whitmore, not with fear, but something much cooler. If this is a place to learn, Deshawn said, then yeah, I want to be here. Whitmore blinked, and for the first time, said nothing. That night, Deshawn stayed late in the library. Not to prove a point, but because he genuinely wanted to understand the Clausius proof, not just repeat it. He studied old research papers, flipped through pages of thermodynamics texts, cross-referenced theories, and jotted down notes faster than most could process. He didn't stop until it clicked. The next day, before class even started, Deshawn walked straight to Whitmore's desk and placed a neatly handwritten page in front of him. That's the Clausius proof, he said, in 3 steps. Whitmore scanned it. His face was unreadable. He didn't respond, just tucked the paper into his folder. But something had changed. From that day on, Whitmore stopped trying to humiliate Deshawn in class, but that didn't mean the challenges were over. During a department research review 2 weeks later, Deshawn's name came up. A senior faculty member, Dr. Linda Cormier, brought it to the table. There's this new transfer student who just solved a multivariable integration model that stumped half my grad class. Whitmore didn't say a word, but Dr. Cormier added, I want him on my team. That was the first time Whitmore pushed back. He's bright, but he's not ready for a research team, especially not yours. Cormier raised an eyebrow. Why not? No discipline, he said calmly. Raw talent isn't enough. Deshawn didn't hear about that conversation until much later. Instead, he kept doing what he did best, studying, observing, and solving quietly. But he couldn't help but notice the shifts, the way other professors started paying attention, the way students began whispering his name not in mockery, but respect. And yet, through all of it, he stayed grounded. Because he hadn't transferred to impress anyone. He transferred because he wanted to challenge himself. And this school had the best program in theoretical physics. It wasn't long before his reputation reached someone outside of campus, a retired Nobel-winning physicist named Dr. Joel Pennington, who still held guest lectures at Westbridge once a semester. Word had reached him about a first-year anomaly, and he made a call to the department chair. I want to meet this kid. And that meeting, that changed everything. Dr. Joel Pennington was a legend in the physics community, a man whose name was synonymous with groundbreaking discoveries and decades of rigorous study. When the department chair called him about Deshawn, Pennington's curiosity piqued immediately. After all, it wasn't every day a freshman caught the attention of both students and faculty alike, especially in a field as demanding as theoretical physics. The day of the meeting arrived. Deshawn walked into Pennington's office, a space cluttered with books, papers, and countless framed accolades. Pennington didn't waste time on small talk. I hear you've made quite the impression, he said, eyes sharp but welcoming. Deshawn nodded, keeping his composure. I'm just focused on understanding the concepts, sir. Pennington smiled. Good. That's how the best minds work. Tell me, have you considered what you want to specialize in? Quantum mechanics, Deshawn replied without hesitation. Pennington raised an eyebrow. Ambitious, but that's good. For the next hour, the two talked, not as professor and student, but as peers in a shared pursuit. Pennington listened intently as Deshawn explained his approach to solving problems, his fascination with patterns in particle behavior, and his skepticism of accepted theories that didn't sit well with experimental data. "What you're doing," Pennington said at the end, "is exactly the kind of thinking physics needs right now. But," he leaned forward, "you have to be prepared for resistance. Not everyone likes a new perspective." Deshawn had felt that resistance already. It wasn't just Whitmore or the department faculty, it was something deeper. The subtle dismissals, the eye rolls, the casual assumptions that he wasn't one of them. But this was the moment where he realized it wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about proving to himself that he belonged. Pennington offered him a chance to join a special research initiative, a program designed to push the boundaries of quantum theory. The catch? It was invitation only, and Pennington's endorsement was his ticket in. Deshawn accepted immediately. Over the next few weeks, the program consumed him. Days blurred into nights. He pored over dense research papers, ran simulations, and even started drafting his own hypotheses. It was exhilarating and exhausting. But just as things seemed to be looking up, the inevitable happened. Professor Whitmore called Deshawn into his office. "I hear you've joined Pennington's program," Whitmore said, voice low but firm. "Yes, sir." Whitmore's gaze was hard to read. "You're talented, Carter. But don't forget, talent alone doesn't make a scientist. You need discipline, humility, and respect for tradition. Pennington is lenient, but I'm not." Deshawn nodded respectfully, but said nothing. The conversation left him uneasy. Whitmore wasn't going to make things easy. He could feel the weight of the professor's gaze every time he walked into class. The subtle digs in lecture, the pointed questions designed to trip him up. But he kept moving forward. One afternoon, during a seminar, Whitmore posed a question that left the entire class stumped, a complex paradox about particle-wave duality. "Carter," he said, eyes locking onto him, "explain the solution." Deshawn took a breath and began. Slowly, confidently, he unraveled the paradox with clarity and logic, connecting concepts that others hadn't dared to explore in that setting. When he finished, the room erupted in applause. Even Whitmore was silent. That moment was a turning point. Word about Deshawn spread beyond Westbridge's walls. Invitations to conferences arrived. Articles were written. He was becoming a symbol, not just for academic excellence, but for breaking barriers. Yet Deshawn never lost sight of why he started. The need to be understood, to be seen for who he was. Not just a young black man in a room full of skeptics, but a mind capable of reshaping the way science approached the world. The biggest challenge was still ahead, presenting his original research at the upcoming National Physics Symposium, where the most elite minds gathered. He worked tirelessly, building a theory that challenged existing models on quantum entanglement. It was revolutionary and controversial. On the day of his presentation, the auditorium was packed. The room was thick with anticipation and doubt. Among the audience was Professor Whitmore, watching with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Deshawn stepped up, opened his notes, and began. His voice was steady, his arguments compelling. He demonstrated with precision how current models failed to account for anomalies in particle behavior, and proposed a new framework that bridged those gaps. As he spoke, the room's energy shifted. Faces that once looked down on him now leaned forward, captivated. When he finished, the silence was deafening. Then, slowly, the applause began. Deshawn had done it. he had earned his place, not through confrontation or defiance, but through excellence. And as the crowd rose to their feet, he caught a glimpse of Whitmore's face. Not smug, not scornful, but quietly proud. The applause echoed through the auditorium, filling every corner with a rare energy, an energy born from genuine respect and admiration. Deshawn stood at the podium, feeling the weight of countless eyes fixed on him, but instead of pressure, he felt a quiet confidence settle in. After the session, a line formed around him, professors, students, and even some industry experts eager to discuss his findings. Invitations to collaborate poured in. The doors he had fought so hard to open were now wide open, and he stepped through without hesitation. But with recognition came new challenges. Some colleagues welcomed his ideas, eager to explore fresh perspectives. Others remained skeptical, clinging tightly to established theories. It was a battlefield of intellect and influence. Still, Deshawn persevered. Back at Westbridge University, things had changed too. His peers now treated him with a newfound respect. Students who once ignored him sought his guidance. Professors who dismissed him began to engage in meaningful dialogue. Even Professor Whitmore approached him, not with condescension, but with a nod of acknowledgement. "I underestimated you," Whitmore admitted one afternoon after class. "Your work pushes us all to rethink what we thought was settled." Deshawn simply smiled. "Science is about questioning, sir." Outside the academic world, the impact of Deshawn's work was just beginning. His research attracted attention from leading laboratories and technology firms. There was talk of potential breakthroughs in quantum computing and encryption, fields that could reshape industries and security. Yet, amid the success, Deshawn remained grounded. He remembered the long nights, the doubts, and the subtle battles he fought, not just for recognition, but to belong. He began mentoring younger students from underrepresented backgrounds, encouraging them to pursue their passions regardless of obstacles. For him, success was not just personal, it was a platform to inspire others. One day, during a mentoring session, a young student asked him, "How did you handle all the resistance?" Deshawn thought for a moment. "You have to believe in your work more than anyone else, and when others doubt you, let that fuel your determination instead of your fear." Months later, an unexpected opportunity arrived. The university's dean invited Deshawn to lead a new interdisciplinary research team focused on developing practical applications of quantum theories. It was a chance to not only advance his ideas, but to shape the future of the field itself. Deshawn accepted. As the leader, he brought together brilliant minds from diverse backgrounds. Together, they tackled complex problems, some that had stumped experts for years. The project gained momentum, drawing grants, media attention, and partnerships with top institutions. Yet, through it all, Deshawn never forgot the lessons of his journey, the importance of perseverance, humility, and authenticity. One evening, as he reviewed the latest data from their experiments, a message popped up on his phone. It was from Pennington. "Proud of how far you've come. Ready for the next challenge?" Deshawn smiled, knowing this was only the beginning. The story that started with a simple physics problem in a college classroom had transformed into something much bigger, proof that talent, when paired with courage and grit, could break barriers and change the world. The next challenge was unlike anything Deshawn had faced before. As the leader of the interdisciplinary research team, he was tasked with presenting their breakthrough work to a global audience at the International Quantum Science Summit, a conference attended by the brightest minds and most influential figures in science and technology. The stakes were high. Success here would cement his team's reputation and open doors to funding and collaboration worldwide. Failure could mean years of setbacks and lost credibility. Weeks before the summit, Deshawn and his team worked around the clock. Experiments were refined, presentations rehearsed, and every detail scrutinized. Despite the pressure, Deshawn remained a steady presence, encouraging his colleagues and reminding them why their work mattered. When the day arrived, Deshawn stepped onto the stage in front of a packed auditorium. Among the attendees were seasoned professors, industry leaders, journalists, and skeptics, some waiting for a misstep. Deshawn's presentation was methodical and compelling. He outlined the team's new model for quantum entanglement and its potential applications in secure communications and computing. He highlighted how their approach resolved long-standing inconsistencies in prior theories, backed by experimental data that no one could easily dismiss. Throughout the talk, he maintained eye contact, projected confidence, and spoke with clarity that drew the audience in. Afterward, the questions came, some challenging, others probing, and a few outright confrontational. Deshawn answered each with poise, backed by evidence and thoughtful reasoning. By the end of the session, the mood had shifted. Skepticism gave way to curiosity, and curiosity to respect. A leading physicist approached Deshawn after the panel. "Your work could be transformative. Have you considered partnering with our research facility?" That invitation marked a turning point, not just professionally, but personally. Deshawn had not only proven his capabilities, but had also earned a place among the leaders of his field. Outside the scientific community, Deshawn's story inspired many. Media outlets highlighted his journey from a determined student to a respected innovator. He used this platform to advocate for greater diversity and inclusion in STEM fields, emphasizing that talent can come from anywhere. Deshawn's message was clear. Barriers exist, but they can be broken with resilience, dedication, and self-belief. Years later, looking back, Deshawn reflected on the path that brought him here. The early doubts, the subtle dismissals, and the moments when giving up felt easier were all chapters in a story about perseverance. He continued to push boundaries, mentor aspiring scientists, and contribute to a world where potential isn't limited by background or expectation. Deshawn Carter's journey was proof that greatness isn't handed out. It's earned through hard work, courage, and the refusal to be defined by others. And with that, the future was wide open.